can make it easier if you don't know how to program, how to build stuff. So oftentimes we think about what? The two main systems are what? WordPress and everything else. Kind of. But I want to talk about Drupal as a little bit different. This is a little bit about me. Let's skip it, it's boring. So I have a company that does websites and other stuff. That's boring too. Let's skip that. But what I want to talk about is a few different things. I want to talk about technology choices. How do we choose a technology? How do we even think about technology? What's the best technology? Or what's the best technology for me? And then I want to do a little bit of an introduction to Drupal. What is Drupal a little bit? But I mostly want to talk about this word here that you can see. It's called a site builder. So Drupal is a little bit different than WordPress. WordPress is for what? Blogging. Drupal is a little bit strange. When you install it, it's like, WTF, what the fuck? What do I do? Why? Because Drupal is essentially asking you to start building. And when you see the first site, you're like, how do I build stuff? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present some stuff and then build a few examples. And if I have time, I'll talk about a story. One of my stories is building something kind of complicated and very difficult to call language call. So the first question is, I think all of you know, what is a website? A website is what? HTML, CSS, some JavaScript. But that's not really very interesting. Everything you use is basically a website. Everything on your phone, on your computer, on your browser is a website. The important thing is, these are the raw ingredients. What's the question though? What technologies, what sort of tools can I use to sort of build the web, to build stuff? Yeah. You all wet? Thank you. It's good. Drupal is a very wet. It's blue dot. So what I was saying is, what are the technologies, or maybe another question, what are the technologies that power the internet? Well, actually, this is a very interesting picture. You can't actually see it, but this is I put the link at the bottom. This is called the technology landscape today. And what you see is basically all of these technologies could be used to run your business on the internet. And there's all kinds of stuff. If we would just take this little part right there, you'll see kind of an interesting question. It says website. And it gives you a number of different technologies. Drupal, WordPress, Django, Ruby on Rails, Joomla, all of these are technologies. But when you start thinking about it, how much choice is there? How many things can you build your website with? Well, this is about 500 things. There's probably 5,000 things. So one of the first things when you think about building stuff is like, well, what? What should I build? So many people talk about a CMS. Does anybody know what a CMS is? A little bit? Well, we'll talk about that after. CMS is kind of a system to build your website, to organize your information. And the biggest one is WordPress. And then the second one is Joomla and then Drupal, of the top million websites. But when you start looking at bigger websites, so this is the top 100,000 websites, this Drupal one gets bigger. And when you look at the top 10,000 websites, in fact, Drupal gets even bigger. So what's interesting, as websites get more complicated, more information, bigger, more powerful, they actually use Drupal more. So sort of this question, what is a CMS? A CMS, or some of the examples. The biggest is WordPress. You can't really see it. It's at about 9%. And Drupal uses about 3%. But you imagine all the websites in the world, 8% use WordPress, and about 3 or 4% use Drupal. So let's sort of turn this question around. What technology should I use on my next project? So when you start thinking about your next project, hopefully all of you are always like, what's the next project? What should I build? I want to build something. I want to give you a bit of an example about why maybe Drupal is a good choice. Maybe. Especially if you're not a programmer, but you want to build something a little bit more complicated. But obviously the question of what technology should I use, it depends. We saw this picture before. There's thousands of choices. What technology is best? It depends. For me, about 99% of the time, I use Drupal. So maybe this first question is I want to tell you two stories. What led me? Why do I use Drupal? Why do I drink, I drink the blue juice all the time, Drupal. If people get to know me, I talk about Drupal all the time. Not with girls, though. It doesn't work. I was in a bar and I said Drupal and she left. I cried. I want to tell you two stories. They're actually failures. But they taught me a lot of things. So the two stories are about these two websites. One's called DIY Abroad and one is called Language Corner. And this tells the story about why I started to use Drupal. So imagine about 3 or 4 years ago, in 2009, I was living in China, in Chengdu. And I was doing a number of things. I was very ambitious. I was very young. I was very hungry. I wanted to be a millionaire. I wanted to be rich, famous. But really, I just wanted to build a more complicated website. So I was living there and I was building different kinds of websites with HTML and WordPress. But eventually when you use WordPress, you get what? You're like, how can I do more? Eventually though, I wanted to build this site called DIY Abroad. And it was a very simple idea. In China, many students what? They study abroad. In Spain or in England, lots and lots of students study abroad. But there's a big problem in China, what? There's a lot of bad information. So they go through these different agencies and they try to study abroad and they get sent to this university and they discover what? I'm in a very small town. There are no people and there's really no real school. And I said, this is weird. I don't like this. This is bad. And I thought I could do a business too. I could help people and I could do good. But the problem was I couldn't really build this with WordPress. And I didn't know how to do anything either. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do anything. I'll be honest, I was stupid. I didn't know how to build anything. I knew how to install a WordPress blog and start writing.
So you didn't have any coding skills?
No coding skills whatsoever. HTML and CSS. But HTML and CSS is not coding skills. It's a markup, but it's not a programming language. So at that time, I decided I would be very smart and I would hire someone. I'll hire someone to build this website. So I hired a Chinese company and they sucked. They failed. They made me wait. And while I waited, what did I do? I tried stuff. I tried 4 or 5 different technologies. Ruby on Rails, Jenga, Joomla, and Drupal. I just kept trying. One thing to remember is it's free. If it's open source, it's free. What does it cost you? It costs you time. Apparently my computer is playing some nice music. So then I wanted to build Eventually though, that project failed. It just didn't work. I didn't build it. I didn't get excited. It didn't work. It happens. But I had another idea eventually. I wanted to build a site I call Language Corner. And so I did this in 2011. No business plan, no idea what I was doing. But I wanted to solve another problem I had. So I was teaching in a university in China, and I had about 30 or 40 students, but I wanted to get more interaction. I wanted to be more active. And today everybody spends more time on the internet. And so sometimes you have students that want to talk, sometimes you have students that want to type. So I had the idea that I would build a website for students and teachers to interact. They would have a group learning space, they would have all kinds of stuff. But I didn't know how to build it either. I had no idea. But I was lucky. Why? Because in Drupal, and in a few other systems, there was already people working on the same problem. Not exactly the same, but they had the same kind of general problem. They wanted to make a space for students. So eventually what I did is I chose the best technology that was open source. And I kept building and learning. I'll come back to this story. But the moral of this story is I built a website I didn't know how to use. I didn't know how to build at the beginning. But at the end, I was adding new functions by using Drupal. So just a few words real fast. A CMS. A CMS is a content management system. Well, I put the Chinese in. Anyway. It means what? That you have your content in one system, and then you have your code in a different system. The content is in what? Your database, right? And your code is in PHP, for example. But the basic idea is because you have a separation of content and code, you can change the style, but not break the content. Same thing in WordPress, right? You put a new theme, and it changes the style, but your content is the same. Sort of the basic idea of a CMS is what? You have the core, and then you add plugins, right? You add different plugins, like, oh, I want this magic forum thing, and I add a module or a plugin. And then you add different themes to control the layout. Basically, it's very, very simple. A CMS lets you separate your important stuff, which is what? The content and the code. The key sort of, we just said that, let's skip that. So the real important question everyone always throws up is like Drupal versus or WordPress versus. I hate this question. Drupal versus, it's not like a fight. But it's a very, very interesting topic. I actually wrote one blog post in 45 minutes talking about it, and I still get most of my traffic on my website because people always look Drupal versus WordPress. But the basic three biggest ones are what? WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal. Joomla is dead, don't use it. WordPress is very much alive, and so is Drupal. But my one idea is that WordPress and Drupal are not fighting, they're not really competitors. It's very rare that someone asks me, should I use WordPress or Drupal? Most people that come to me, they already say, WordPress, it doesn't work, I need Drupal. Or I need something else. Why? Because I think you all know this, but if you use WordPress, it's really a powerful blogging system for blogging. But it's not so easy to build stuff, to change stuff. So like I said, if you really want to use WordPress for blogging, use it. Don't use Drupal. You'd be crazy to use Drupal for a blogging site. But if you have a ton of other stuff, and you want to build stuff, maybe Drupal will work. Because what? Even if you imagine sort of WordPress is what? A blogging CMS. It's a blogging CMS. I consider Drupal to be a builder's CMS. That means what? It's really about people building stuff with their mouse. Click, 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 click. It's not about using code. You don't need to code to build stuff. So I taught a class in China for a number of years where students, they couldn't code. But they would come and they say, I want to build something. And I said, oh, let's try. And they would add different modules, add different things, and eventually they would be able to build their website. The reason why they can build their website with Drupal is because it has a few different kind of ways of imagining the data. Basically, Drupal has fields everywhere. You can add information on anything, on users, on content, on orders, on anything. And you have this very, 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 very powerful module for building custom data queries. Does anybody know what SQL is? MySQL? It's something for like talking to your database. It's not fun. It's not fun. But Drupal has this very magical module, I'll show you, that makes you build MySQL or SQL queries to pull your data out. So Drupal has a very easy way to put data in, and then you pull it out in different ways. So just sort of a question, does anybody know any websites built with Drupal? Anybody know? Anybody know? The White House. The White House is built on Drupal. Interesting too, is there was an election a few years ago, a couple years ago. Both Obama and Romney, they fight, but they both love Drupal. They both use Drupal. Another kind of example, universities. So in fact, universities are the biggest users of Drupal. In the United States, about 80 or 90% of websites for universities use Drupal. It's very, very big. If you want to make money, learn Drupal, go work for a university in America. Ubuntu. So lots of technologies that are not sort of web technologies, they use Drupal to show their website. Lots of newspapers too. The Economist. The other one that's kind of famous is lots of e-commerce. E-commerce users. So most of my business is about e-commerce. So does this guy. Anybody know this guy? Nadal? Some Spanish guy. He uses Drupal too. I don't think he built it though. That'd be cool though. Could you imagine? He's like, oh, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go work on my website. I guess not. But his website's on Drupal too. So I guess my main point is what? You see you've got universities, e-commerce, a very wide variety of sites that can use Drupal. And they use very different things. Like I said, this kind of website, Kenzo, is very different kind of use than the way a newspaper uses it. But they're using the same underlying, the same technology, the same system. Let me show you why. I want to give a couple demos. My first demo will be kind of fast, but does anybody know where we are? Where are we? What kind of space? Where are we? What is this place? Co-working space. Co-working space. So MAO is what? It's a creative maker co-working community space. Their website is okay, but if you had asked sort of the people that run this place, they say there's not a lot of interaction. There's not a lot of interaction. So what I want to build is this first example, is I want to build a member directory space. So you understand what that means? People join Mob, they can put a profile in. Put a profile in. Let's do it real fast. Where's it at? Let's cheat. So here's the, I'll just do it real fast. I just installed this earlier. And when you install it, you'll get this very lovely screen. Oops, let me make it better. It says what? It says, welcome to Drupal. And you look at this and you say, fuck, this is ugly. And it is. It's completely garbage. It's completely terrible. But what's scary about it is I think Drupal doesn't really show you how much power it is. How much power it has. So what I want to do is that for a members directory, we need people to be able to create their own space, their own profile page. And in fact, it's incredibly easy. So we'll see here under people, we have what? No people, or one user, very sad. But I want to create a page for this tester. So we see this tester, oh, very sad. No information. A member for 2 hours, 2 hours ago. Let's create a member page real fast. First thing we want to do is, it's a little bit confusing, but we want to go to this area under configuration and then account settings. Account means what? Your user account. And then there's this very, very, very important field you can't see very well that says manage fields. Manage fields and display fields. So let's add some fields. Let's add some fields. So the first field we want to add is what? First name and what? We'll make it real fast. How about we skip first name? We'll just say name.
I got a question, Mark.
Yep.
Was that a module that you added that
Nope.
enables that, or is that built into the system?
Is no module. I just installed, there's no modules. Let me just be real clear. So I just installed Drupal. I added a few modules before because it's faster. I just turned them on. But this will use no modules. This is core Drupal. Core Drupal. I'll explain this a little bit more. But see, you see under core, you have, kind of hard to see here, field. So this is a very, very important part of Drupal. You add fields. In fact, it powers most of the system. And then this is a little bit deeper, and the field UI. So I'm only using this, and then there's other types of fields. Image field, list field, I'll show all these. Menu, number, and what else? Options, path. So anyways, I didn't install any new modules. No special modules. This is core. So let me go back real fast. Account settings, and then we want to add fields. So I'll just add what? A name field, because we're lazy. And so you see these different types. It's kind of hard to see. Let me make it bigger. So what you see under here, under field types, these are all kind of special ones, like image, float is a kind of number, a file, a decimal. I added one module for country and different lists. But for name, all we really want is just text. It's just text, so we'll save that. And it's going to ask us a few questions. And maybe this is important. It asks, does it need to be required? I think if you're a member, it's probably required. And then we want to what? This one's kind of hard to see. Display on the registration. Let's save that. What else? Let's add one more. I added one other module because I'm lazy and I don't like to type all the country names. All the country names. So I added a module called countries. Country. I added this module and all it does is it imports all the country names because I'm lazy and I don't want to type. So we also want to ask people what their home country. And we're going to use, in fact, this is not core, but we're going to add a country field. Real fast. Let's add one other one. I think it's faster. And we'll display it, but it's not required. If someone wants to lie, they can. I don't care. Save. Make this one. Let's add, I don't know, what else should we add? We can add maybe your skill, or how about professional? And we're going to change this a little bit. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Instead of just adding text, text is fine, but it's a little bit hard to organize. We're going to use this one called list. List, 1, 2, 3. We're going to use list. And let's add it. Let me cheat because we're lazy. Let's see, how about this one? We'll call. So then what you're going to do in the list, what you need to do, you need to decide what are the options. So I wrote Illustrator, I don't know, web developer, marketing, guru, handyman, I don't know, lover. So this is, you're basically allowing which selections. And we're going to also make it display on the user form. The other thing you could decide if you want, should people be able to select multiple values? Maybe not, we could. All right, well let's see how this looks. So if I would go back, and I'll go to the website again. It's very ugly, very stupid looking, but we already see now we can go in. If we're a new user, we can go to this create new account. Sorry, let me do this again. My server's too fast for me. If we go down here, we'll see what. We can add our name, and we can select our, it's very ugly, our home country. Let's fix that. Let's go back. So you see under here, we've got home country, and what I've just done is I've done checkboxes or radio buttons. I don't think we want to do that. Hopefully we can change. We want to change it to what? A select list. Let's go back. We'll take a look. And if we go down, we'll see. I should have turned this off. You'll see. Should have turned off my caching. Ah, there it is. So you can see now you can select your home country. Let's add one more for fun. Let's make this. I think we forgot. Let's add. Let's go back. I don't know, what else should we add? How about we add your sex? Just to show a difference. And we'll do another. And so you see this one's a little bit hard to say, but you can do the select list or you can do a radio button. Sex. And allow values yes or no. Anyway, so now you can see real fast. You can see now we've got this registration page, and I can actually start registering. So I can go my name, and I can make an email. And I can make a password. So there's a number of things you can control, but you can already add your name and your country. And let's save it. Hopefully this works. Oops, I gotta use my passwords the same. Alright. Very secret. Can anybody guess? PASS. Very secret. So there it is. I've already created a user. So let's just go and take a look. Drupal's a little bit confusing, but the most important thing we can see is under people. And we've already created this new guy. This new guy here. So just to review, we can do this on anything in Drupal. We can add fields. I chose to add fields on the user. But I can add fields on any kind of content. If we have time, I'll show you another example where you could add fields on a different kind of content. So if I go back to this one, I said the first thing I was saying, I was saying you can add custom fields. That's great. I can add custom fields. I can put all kinds of data in, anything I want. But what's important is how you pull it out and you show it in different places. So let's do this real fast. I'm going to cheat. I did this earlier. But I'll do it here on this one. I'll do it on this one. Because I need more users. So what I'm going to show you real fast. So this one already has some people. It's the same basically. I added some more people. I added a picture and their home and all that stuff. So one of the other modules that's very, 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 very important, probably the most important module in all of Drupal, is called views. So views is the module for us people that are very lazy and we don't want to learn SQL. We don't want to learn it. We should be very lazy. This will make us be lazy is good. I consider myself to be a lazy programmer. If I can use some other technology to do it, I will. So this is the module we're going to show you real fast. If you go under structure, there's all kinds of stuff, but the most important is this one called views. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a new view. And so what you do when you create a view, so let me make it bigger, is you decide a name. So we'll call it member page. And then you can select the different content, but what we want to select is the users. So we're going to select the users, and we're going to create a page. All this doesn't matter. Alright, let me make this a little bit cleaner so we can see it. Let's get rid of this. Alright, so this page, it looks a little bit confusing, a little bit strange maybe, but really all you're doing is creating a way to talk to the database. So we put all this information in the database. The username, their email, I don't know, their country, all of this is in the database. Now we want to get it out, and we want to show people. So what we're doing here is we've decided is we're selecting active users and we're showing the username. So this is all I did is I can take a look at this page. We've already got data in. Oops, I gotta save it. Save it. And you can see, oh wow, this is a very amazing website. So beautiful, so amazing. But in fact, it's quite powerful. What we already did is we're pulling out the users from the database. Just their names. But we want to pull out some other information. We want to pull out all of their information, hopefully. So let's pull out their country. Let me just show you this real fast. I was a little bit fast. Under fields, you go to add. So in fact, I'm pulling all the users, but then I'm going to show what fields will I show. I'm going to show the country. What else we had in there? Profession. And so let's add those real fast. Doesn't matter. Let's just say apply. We can fix this later. Alright, let's save it and we'll go back. And there we go. We're done. Goodbye. No, but look at what we've already managed to do. We've already managed to pull out different information from the database. Do I need to learn SQL? No. All I did was I went into this system and I started to add fields. Let's make it a little bit better. This page looks kind of ugly, right? It's kind of hard to see. Let's change it. So we can go under Format, and right now it's a list. It's a list. It would be better if this was what? A table. A table. So let's change it to a table. Save it. And let's take a look real fast. This will look a lot better, I hope. And so there we have a list of all of the users, their name, their country, and their profession. This is kind of useful. Let's make it even more useful. Let's add a filter. So a filter means what? We select different types. So we could actually say we only want to make a page of all users from Spain, or all users that are web designers. We could make all these different pages. But let's make it more flexible. Let's do it like this. Let's do profession, and let's add this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to let users decide which ones they want to show. It's a little bit hard to see. It says expose this filter to visitors to allow them to change it. That's cool. Let's let them do it. Let's save it real fast. And we'll go back real fast. So what we have up now, it doesn't look very good, but what we can do is we can actually select which members we want to see. We only want to see writers. So let's apply this filter, and we go back, and we can actually see the different people by that filter. In fact, this module is probably used on, I think, every Drupal website, pretty much. But what it allows you to do is all kinds of amazing stuff. I mean, I don't know what you want to do, but we could do all kinds of strange things. We could actually create a different kind of type. Let's see, we wanted to make, I don't know, a grid. Grids are cool. Let's make a grid. And let's add what? Let's add the picture real fast. We want to change, this is a little bit different. We'll change the size. We'll make it smaller. Alright, real fast, let's save it. And we'll take a look. So as we can see now, we've got this very beautiful page showing what? The username, the country, the profession, and their picture. This is the cheat one. If we would spend more time playing around with it, we can actually create different kinds of pages. So we could actually say, oh, I want video producers from, I don't know what country that is. We would probably want to fix that. But there's no users. There's no users. Does that make any sense? Was that too fast? All right. So just to review. There are basically two parts to kind of how you use Drupal. You put information in, and you add fields, basically. You add fields to stuff. So my example was talking about users. But we could actually add fields to a number of different things. If you actually, normally what you do is you add them under content types. Content types. So if we would look at these content types, you would have these areas for manage fields. So if we would look at an article would have what? They would have the title, the body, tags, image, flags. But I could actually start adding more. Imagine I wanted to make a website about universities. I could put more and more fields. And the second part is this area about views. It looks a little bit crazy at the beginning, but there are kind of two parts to views. There's controlling the filters, meaning what do we want to show? We only want to select this data. And then what do we want to display? Which fields and how? I think we can actually show. So this would be the SQL. if you actually wanted to learn how to do this with database stuff, here it is. Select user's name as username, user's USD. You could learn this, but we don't want to learn it. It's very boring. So let's go back real fast. So like I said, I consider Drupal to be a builder's CMS, meaning you don't need to learn to code to start doing custom shit, custom stuff. We'll go back. It looks very ugly, like I said. It looks terrible. It looks really bad. I apologize. I'm sorry. But don't, what do they say? Don't judge a book by its cover. Because you can do all kinds of powerful things. And you can always add new modules. In terms of technology, it's the same technology as WordPress, basically. You have PHP, that's your programming language, how you talk to your server, how you do special code. And you have a database and a web server for it. Drupal's organization is pretty similar. You have content, you have structure, you have your appearance. So if I wanted to make my website, imagine I wanted to make it, I don't know, more beautiful. I can go to appearance and I can add, oops, I didn't click on it. I could add a different theme, or I could build my own theme. I could even go in here and if I wanted to make it, I can change the settings. I think you really wouldn't want to change this, but if I wanted to, I could say Firehouse. Save. And my website's changed appearances. But like I said, it can add different functionalities. So I can change the content, change the structure of my content, and how I display my content. And of course I can control people, and modules is what? I can add new functionalities, new stuff. Let's go. The thing that's kind of important to imagine about Drupal, and Dan asked this question, is that core Drupal. So basically what I showed you was core Drupal, and I added two different modules. I added the countries module. In fact, I could create a list and type all of them out. But this module, what? It lets me make a field with the countries. And the other module I added was views. But basically, core Drupal does all of the fields. There are a number of other things you can do. Like I said, registrations, forums, management, all kinds of stuff. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to code. But the other thing that's important is Drupal contrib, meaning contributions. People add stuff. And I think WordPress has more, but it has more of the same kind of modules. You have like 20 plugins for a slider, probably 100 for a slider. Drupal has a lot too, but Drupal generally has more people working on the same code. But there are a lot of modules. So just today I looked, there were 21,000 modules today. In 2011, there were 11,000. So in the span of about 2 years, there's been 10,000 new modules, and some very important ones too. But the point is what? There are many times when you build in Drupal, you say, I want this, I don't know how to code. You say, is there a module? And many times there is. Almost all my problems, I can just use someone else's module, someone else's code. I have my own too. The other one that's very important for Drupal is a thing called distribution. Does anybody know what a distribution is? So you know Linux, you heard the word Linux? You know Linux you have Ubuntu or Red Hat. All of these are distributions. In the core of Linux is the same kernel. Drupal is the same way. It's using the same Drupal, but giving you different experiences, different things. So it takes many modules, many things, and it puts it together into a kind of site. So I'll give you an example. Let's see. So I have this funny little server. These are different distributions. Make it bigger. So these are things I can install, and I have a kind of a website. So here's one called Open Deals. So I can make a Groupon type website where people buy. Or I can make Open Church. Maybe I want to make church websites. It's ready. Or Open Public. Open Public is actually the software that's used to power the White House type websites, for government websites. So many governments get together, they say, well, we all kind of need the same thing. Let's build it together and have more time for other stuff. I have one too, I have a few. Coming soon. I can show you, it's very beautiful. Coming soon. And what this distribution does, it's very simple. I built it so that you can put a website up that says my business or my project is coming soon. Give me your email. That's it. But sometimes I need that. So in one click, I'm ready to go. I have a kind of website. It'll be ugly, but it'll have the basic functionality.
So how does that work with the distributions? Do you download and then somehow upload it to get that framework?
So what happens is, I can show you real fast. I'll show you in how it's structured real fast.
But they're not pre-installed.
They are pre-installed. So what happens is we use a different word. I'll show you. Imagine, let's go here. So imagine this is this event system. I don't know how to make it bigger. So you have this area called profiles. So it's kind of hard to see. But so if you would just install the minimum, that would only install maybe about 10 modules. And standard was what I just showed you in the demo, would be the important modules. And you would add extra ones. So this would be Panoply, which is another system to add stuff. So you would have this system when it installs and configures, and it shows you a website. I'll install one now and we'll come back. Let's see. This takes a minute, but we'll call it Dan. What do you want, Dan? You want a church?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to install it. I will come back. And we'll install it in the latest one. Oops, that's in the old. We'll come back. This will take about a few minutes. We'll come back. I kind of have a special server. So like I said, these distributions, they save you time. So if I had to build every website and go in and I got to make this and this, a lot of times everybody needs the same thing. So distributions are kind of ways to save you time at the beginning, kind of your starting position. So there's a very, very famous one called Drupal Commerce. And you install it and you have a shop. You basically have a shop, you connect it with PayPal, and you start adding products, but it's on your server. Or another very famous one is called Open Publish. And you install it and you have something like a newspaper system. How much time do we have? About 5 or 10 minutes, what do you think? So maybe I'll be real fast on the advantages. Drupal is very open source. WordPress is open source, but not so much. Open source is good. If you don't understand it, it's good. It's also, Drupal is very stable and very secure. Because why? There are thousands of people using it. Thousands of very important websites using it. So what? They don't want their website to break, so they share all of the problems or the things they fix back. In fact, whenever I build a website and there's a bug or a problem, 99% of the time, it's my bug. It's not Drupal's fault. It's something I did, something I broke, etc. It's also very, very, very flexible. In fact, it's so flexible, when we show you the first Drupal, it looks like crap. It looks stupid. We don't understand. Because Drupal is about giving you the chance to build what you want. Like I said, the two important things are what? Fields everywhere. You can put fields on anything, and then there's views module. Like I said, you can build anything. I've built a photo gallery site. I've built event sites, video sites, commerce sites, product sites. Probably one of the most common is to build community sites. So people want to build what? The next Facebook. We could build it in a few days. Maybe not. Build a copy. Drupal is very good for having member sites. Because you can actually, I'll show you real fast.
Is there a distribution for that? For community
Yeah,
sites?
the biggest one is, I'll show you your church real fast. Dan's church. So the most famous one is this one called Drupal Commons. Sorry, here's Dan's church. Let's take a look. This is actually on the internet. I'm not sure why. I think the internet's a little slow. Oh, there it is. Dan's church. There it is. And so it's kind of hard to see, but it does a number of things. Like a lot of churches, you want to what? You want
money.
Give money. Get directions. What are the events? It's ready to go. So in fact, if Dan would open his church today, he could start changing stuff. And in a few hours, you could actually have a real church website. You know, Dan's church needs to be, you know, talking to God on Twitter, Facebook, and I don't think God uses Google+. I don't think so.
I don't think anybody does.
I do. But anyways, the one I was just telling you is this one called Drupal Commons. This is an example. So in fact, a number of brands use this. So this is actually a kind of group website. So in fact, in Drupal Commons, you have groups inside. So it's like having a multiple sites in one site. So let me show you real fast. So if you would have, actually this is not it. This is not it. Well, this is talking about it. Anyways, we'll come back if we have time. Like I said, it's very flexible. It's also surprisingly very developer friendly. Even though I consider Drupal to be a builder's framework for people to build and no code, there are lots of people that code too. I code too. It's actually a pretty friendly system to build modules. So I build a module, it takes me some time, and then I give it away. And surprisingly, people use it, and it fixes their problem. So many times developers, like me, we fix our problems, and then we share it, and it fixes other people's problems. And sometimes, in fact, they find a problem in my code, and they fix it for me. But Drupal is very developer-friendly. We have this expression in Drupal. It says, Drupal imagines every new user as maybe possibly a new contributor, a new developer, a new partner. Like I said, I consider Drupal to be a builder's CMS. What that means is it imagines that you should be empowered to build your website, not to have to pay someone to build it for you. I have more, but that's probably enough. Any questions? I was going to build something else, but I don't think we got enough time.
Have you heard of this young man called Dimitri something? A Polish guy who's apparently the brain person into approving what's going on.
Dries, no.
He's a young Polish guy.
So Drupal is actually a kind of dictatorship, meaning that it's an open community, but there's one guy that can decide, do we do this or do we not do this? So in my opinion, democracies are bad for building certain things. So this guy, he actually controls. He's from Belgium. His name is Dries. So in fact, Drupal is very interesting because it's extremely international. So they have, every year they have two big conferences. One is in Europe and one is in the United States. But it's also, I mean, I can show you real fast. When I built the example earlier, it's very multilingual. So on this example website, it can actually change the language pretty easy, so I can add new languages. So many times I don't build websites in English. I build them in like Chinese or French or something. But you can see I've already started to change some of the translation stuff.
What can Drupal not do? So what are the limitations? At what point do I need to pay somebody?
Well, sometimes you do. Like, in fact, it's never going to, like a lot of technologies, it's never going to give you 100% of the answer. Because why? Many times what you want to build is 90% Facebook, 10% Twitter, and 20% something else of your brain. Meaning that you want to combine all of these technologies together. Drupal's great for these, what we call mashups. What doesn't it do well, I would say, is probably it doesn't do really well. I think it can do everything, but there are some areas, like for developers, it can get, at the beginning, there's too much stuff. Like if you're trying to build something that's like brand new and you don't really know how to fix it, this stuff is like a distraction. So many times they use what, like the Django or Ruby on Rails. I don't think that's actually a bad thing. Because if you're building something that's maybe 100% custom, maybe you don't want to use Drupal. But if it's actually a few different things together, it's like a little bit of Facebook, and maybe other people are already doing kinds of stuff, Drupal works really great. So probably the most common I build is community websites with commerce. So Drupal is really good at commerce now and really good at community. So you put them together. People pay to get access as a member to this part of the website. That's probably the most, almost every website I build for Drupal, someone says, I want some users to do this and some users to do this. And you have to, maybe for example, like this education website I built, is you have to give something to get something, for example. Or, another website is this stocks website. So all the members must pay to get the full information. So they might get some teasers, a little bit of information, but until they pay, they don't get full access, for example. Those are probably the two areas, because I think WordPress is a little bit hard when you want to have member websites. It's really hard to figure out who gets access and who has permission. Drupal really, that's the most important thing is access control and permissions. That's a bad answer.
That was good.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Where is the data physically stored? I mean, they have a space.
It's a database, yeah.
But
It's MySQL.
how much data can you put? Is there a limit? If I want to use it for data management on a large amount of data.
I would say the bigger your data gets, it depends how you're using your data. Drupal's basically making it easier for people that don't know SQL to create all of the tables, for example. So for normal people, they don't understand any of that stuff, Drupal is very easy. But if you're a developer, maybe you'll look at it and say, oh, that's going to confuse me. It can handle a lot of data. So I have databases that are 2 or 3 gig. It can handle it. You're obviously not going to be using that. When the website gets big on databases, there are other questions, like performance. So the bigger issue, people often say, well, Drupal, how can it handle lots of people? It breaks. Well, anything will break with lots of people. You have to do different things. So you do caching. And generally, I think the most common is you do a Redis cache.
How does it perform in terms of visualization of data or other things? Does it have modules or other things built in that you can?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. You mean visualizing the data?
Yeah.
I'll show you one. So this is a commerce website. Oops, I wrote it wrong. So there are always basically, it's almost all the data is built, or all the visualizations are built on top of views. So views is basically pulling your SQL out, and then you're showing your data in different ways. So this is using basically, this is charting it via the Google Chart API. So you pull the data out, and it does all the calculations, because visualizations take a lot of memory. But there's, like I said, in Drupal, there's always a module, almost. This is actually just, I can show you real fast, maybe not. It's a little bit different, but I can actually show you, these are just views. This is a lot of views. The websites that get bigger, they have more and more and more and more views. I don't know if that answers your question.
I mean, yes, it probably answers. The question is more how flexible are these modules? I mean, can I really build my own?
Oh yeah, so building modules is probably the easy part. So Drupal is a kind of a hook system, meaning that once it gets to this point, you can insert your change almost everywhere along the line. For example, if I wanted to take it and say, well, when it's presenting this data, I want to do this calculation, of course.
Yeah, and do they have any right on the content, on the data that if this is a proprietary?
It's GPL. It's all GPL. On the data, no, there wouldn't be any because I use Drupal, you own your files basically in your database. You don't own the code though. So Drupal is Like, if I would build like, a module for Drupal, I could sell it. It's legal to sell, but if I would sell it to you, you could actually give it away because it's just the way the licensing works. So generally, like if your product is extremely proprietary, like you built something super custom, you might want to be careful with Drupal. But most of the time, what you're building is an experience, a shop or something like. Sure, you might have 10% customization. I wouldn't share it, but I'm very happy to use all these modules to build it a lot faster, a lot cheaper. Yeah.
I've used WordPress a little bit, and I know that in WordPress I can create a new installation, buy a theme for $40, and it will be visually prepared for a website on a computer and on a mobile device, and that takes probably 1 or 2 hours. In Drupal, how long would something like this take? Or I mean,
so there's the same issue. You can buy, you bought a theme, right? You bought a theme. There's marketplaces for buying Drupal themes too. So it's probably about the same. If you buy a theme, you install it, and it's an hour of changes.
but there is a marketplace.
Oh yeah, but I would say that because Drupal is used on bigger websites, a lot of times that the theme marketplace on Drupal is smaller. Because why? If you're building a custom website, you don't want it to look like 1,000 other websites. So I would say maybe that's one of the weaknesses in Drupal, to be honest. There's just not as many themes. But WordPress has a lot of garbage themes, a lot of terrible themes that are built really poorly and actually dangerously. And you don't know. You pay $40, and in fact, there's some code in there where they're going to steal all your data or start sending emails. You don't know. Because Drupal is way more controlled. I wouldn't advise you if you download modules from WordPress. I would not advise you to download it from other websites because you don't know. Same thing on Drupal. You should really download it from there because there's people watching. Yeah. But there's a lot of stuff like, I was talking about distributions. Like there are a lot of distributions you could use to build stuff. Like Dan now has a church website. I could build a website for like a newspaper. The other one is these like a very, very strong module is this module called organic groups. It's actually quite complicated, but what it allows you to do is you have in your website different groups. So maybe I'm a university, I have the English department or the history department. And in fact, these would have permissions inside of the group. So someone that has the permission to write an article in the history group, but is not a member there, well, they wouldn't have that permission, for example. This is a very powerful module. It's pretty hard though. Yeah.
So what would be sort of the best way to learn how to use Drupal?
Good point. I didn't even get to that slide. So there's a couple of different things. So my first sort of advice when I always ask people, well, first ask your question, like, what do you want to build? Like, I always hate when people say, I want to learn this technology, but I got no project. It's really hard to learn. So the first thing you want to think about is, what's your project? And once you have a project, then you can start trying to build it. So there's a few different resources. I always recommend, I don't know if you ever heard of lynda.com. Lynda.com has a very good introduction to Drupal 7. It's great. I give it to all my students. They say, oh, we don't want, so this one, it's kind of small. Lynda.com.
Is it free?
Lynda.com. There's another big website called Drupalize.me. Those would be video websites. If you like to learn through videos, those are good.
For free?
No. Lynda.com is not free. Drupalize.me is a little bit free. But I think you should pay for your education. Education's worth it.
Linda's awesome.
Lynda's good. If I would be I learned it with lynda.com for 6 in Drupal 6. But I use Drupalize.me. There's another very, very good book called Understanding Drupal. And it's a little bit like a recipe book, you know, when you cook. Just, I want to make a wiki website. I want to make a newspaper. Each chapter, if you actually build each chapter, you'll actually learn lots. So my advice is have a project and then just try really hard. and ask people. Drupal is really, really friendly. It's surprisingly friendly. Like you would say, well, I don't want to ask anybody. Don't be afraid. People are actually very helpful. Go on the forums, even go on this thing called, I don't know if you've heard of IRC. I can't write it down. IRC, it's for like very old, you know what IRC is, yeah. It's very old chat protocol. But you can go on there and ask a question. People won't be like, oh, you're so bad for asking questions. Yeah.
But if you want to build your own website or
Let me give you one more example. There's another one called DrupalGardens.com, and you can go on there, and it's a bit like WordPress.com, and you can start building a website. It's not you like WordPress.com. You can't build all the plugins, but it gives you the most important ones. So all the ones I showed you today. So if you want to get started, just go on Drupal Gardens and try. Yeah, sorry.
yes, what I want to say is that it's alright to learn whatever you want, for example, Drupal, provided that the most intention to learn Drupal is just to build your own website or to build many websites and make a living out of that.
So I'll tell you.
I mean, there's no reason for one person to build his own website to learn Drupal, is that right?
Why not? I'll tell you a story.
Because
I didn't finish my story.
Time,
I'll finish my story. So this was the website that I wanted to build, this language corner. I spent a lot of time, and for me it was a lot of money at the time. I paid them. I paid people to help me build it. I built my own stuff, and it got better. It got better. It got better. But it never made any money. I didn't make any money. But when I ran out of money, because people knew about me, they found me, and they wanted to pay me. They said, I want to pay you to fix this thing.
or to build something.
So I actually, I didn't really finish the story. I had no intention, no desire to be a programmer. Maybe I sort of wanted to, it was like a dream. I'd be cool if I could do it. But in fact, all I did was I was building my own projects, and when I ran out of money, and I was tired of working on that, it was like a miracle. People started asking me. I do zero advertising, and I always have clients. I have too many clients.
Your clients are people who wants
Build Drupal stuff, yeah.
build websites.
Build websites, yeah. They don't really
so
care
you're making
about
money out of building websites using
Yeah,
Drupal.
right now I'm a service provider. You know what that means? So I basically, build people's websites. I mean, I have other projects, but for me, I was lucky. I ran out of money, and people were willing to pay me to basically, I was giving away all this code, and people found me. They said, oh, I like your module, I like your plugin. Can it do this? I said, sure, for $1,000. I don't know. You just make a number at the beginning. You just make numbers up. But for me, Drupal was a way to start building without knowing how to code. So eventually what can happen is maybe by building, you say, well, I want to do a little bit more. And then you start looking under, how can I look at the code? But you don't have to start that way. I mean, I have lots of people that use their own Drupal websites, do their own stuff on Drupal websites. They never touch the code. That's awesome. But if you want, the code's there. You can look at it, you can learn from it. Yeah.
So imagine I already have a website.
Yep.
And I want to build a section of that website on Drupal. How easy is it to share content between? How easy is it to pull the content out of the database and put it on my regular website, and on the other way to put content from my website inside the...
So I'll give you...
Is there any API or...
Yeah, so basically when people build, like even I do, if I would build an app, so imagine I built a website on Drupal, but I want to build a native app, but I want to keep the data in the Drupal. So I would use it's called the Services API, and you set up endpoints, and you can pull the data from that website to the other one. The other way you could do it, I mean, I don't know exactly what you want to do. I mean, you could also set it up where authentication, meaning user logins, would go through another website. So some of my websites, I never make people register. They log in through another website like WordPress, or they log in through Facebook or whatever. It depends. I mean, I'm not. What's the other website?
I have another website with another database.
Yeah.
I have some content there, some data, for example, that I want to be able to...
So I mean, the other way that, I mean, this happens a lot. I get people that say, I want to migrate my data from this system. Because what's happening right now is there's a lot of technologies that are dying. So what happens is they know that technology's dying. It's unfortunate, technology's dying. So you can actually migrate it to like Drupal. So I have some projects that migrate. It's not fun. Data migration is like the worst. You don't want to do it.
It's pretty easy from WordPress, right?
It's super easy from WordPress. It's like 10 minutes.
Guys, unfortunately, we gotta wrap it up
Yep.
here, but, let's get drinks afterwards, I'm sure.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks again, Mark.